Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Big news out of the Supreme Court yesterday as the High Court cleared the way for the Education Department to fire hundreds of employees, a move that advances President Trump's plans to completely dismantle the department. FBI Director or Deputy Director Dan Bongino was seen at his office yesterday after taking a personal day on Friday, reportedly to think through the DOJ's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. The New York Post Editorial Board had plenty to say about Joe Biden's defense of his staff using the Autopen to sign hundreds of pardons in the final days of his presidency. We have the latest on this story continuing to grow. And meanwhile, Senator Rand Paul yesterday announced that he would revive his criminal referral against Dr. Anthony Fauci, adding yet another wrinkle to the ongoing Biden White House Autopen saga.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Well, it looks like things are cooling down for now in one of the most whispered about and downright bizarre internal dust-ups in the Trump administration. This was the clash between FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino and Attorney General Pam Bondi over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, or the lack of, according to some. So let's break this down. Yesterday, Dan Bongino showed up at FBI headquarters in D.C., back at work after taking a personal day on Friday. Now, that may not sound like breaking news because a lot of people take personal days, right? But believe me, in this political climate and with the stakes involved, it's pretty significant because as of last week, Mr. Bongino was reportedly this close, real close to walking out the door, according to reports from some very reliable sources. And why? Well, the Epstein memo. Last week, the FBI and the Department of Justice quietly dropped a bombshell, or maybe a dud, depending on who you ask. The agencies released a joint memo summarizing their full review of the Epstein case. The result? No client list, no blackmail material, no evidence that would justify a criminal probe of uncharged high-profile individuals or even who they are. Nothing. Zip. In a case that we all know that there's more to it than this. Now, for a certain slice of America, in the MAGA circles, where many have long believed that Epstein's connections were just the tip of a sinister iceberg, this wasn't just disappointing, it was infuriating. How many posts have you seen on social media? How many interviews did you see over the weekend from people who are very conservative, America first, supporters of President Trump, expecting that this DOJ was going to once and for all put to rest some of the rumors? Didn't turn out the way we thought it was, which makes us even more suspicious, right? And Mr. Bongino, he's not just a Trump appointee. He's a former NYPD cop, a former Secret Service agent, a longtime podcaster, commentator who spent years questioning the official story of the Epstein so-called suicide in a Manhattan jail cell back in 2019. So when Bongino read the memo, when he saw it claim that after reviewing all the evidence, the feds found no blackmail, no list, no deeper conspiracy, he reportedly hit the roof. According to multiple sources, Bongino confronted Attorney General Pam Bondi behind closed doors. The exchange was heated, we're told, loud, left him seriously considering resignation. That's what was reported over the weekend. Dan Bongino may not go back to work. Not just over the content of the memo, but over what some inside the administration are calling a lack of transparency. Bongino believed the American people, especially Trump's base, deserved better, deserved a more extensive explanation. Now, let's talk about Ms. Bondi. Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, now Trump's top law enforcement officer, has been front and center on the Epstein case for months now. She made a show of promising transparency. She said on Fox News that Epstein's client list was on her desk. She said thousands of hours of video existed. She suggested the DOJ was finally going to shed light on Epstein's disgusting actions, as she called them at the time. But when the memo finally dropped, again, a big dud. Nothing new, no names, no indictments, no list. And that's what lit the fuse. Some MAGA influencers immediately began calling for Bondi to step down. Social media exploded. Supporters were demanding answers. Many of you texted, emailed. Was the Epstein case being buried again? Was the memo a cover-up, or was the whole idea of a list, a network, a ring of elites just a myth? Did it really not exist? The White House, understandably, tried to contain the fire. And President Trump himself stepped in with what you might call a verbal bear hug. He posted to Truth Social, I think this was on Friday, when he said, "What's going on with my boys and in some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great," the president said. And then over the weekend, Trump made it clear he wasn't about to lose Dan Bongino either. He told reporters, "I spoke to him today. Dan Bongino is a very good guy. I've known him a long time. He sounded terrific. No, I think he's in good shape." Now, what does that tell us? Well, for one, that President Trump knows the Epstein case is radioactive among his core base of supporters. Too many people believe there's more there. Too many people believe they've been lied to before, and they're not going to sit quietly if they think it's happening again. Now, the other side of that is, what if there really isn't anymore? But we have all just been conditioned to expect that there really is. That there is a client list. Now, at the same time, President Trump can't afford an internal civil war between one of his most visible justice officials. Ms. Bondi's running the DOJ. Bongino is essentially the face of the FBI now. Losing either one could trigger a backlash that the Trump administration just doesn't need right now. So the president's trying to play peacekeeper. Keep the team intact, keep the movement unified. But I don't think this is over yet. Do you? Because here's the real issue. It boils down to trust. This isn't just about Epstein or some missing list. It's about whether the government is willing to actually name names when it comes to people with money, power, and secrets. Epstein has become a symbol of corruption, of elite protection, of the rot that people believe exists deep in the heart of our institutions. We know it's there. It's not just suspicions. And when you release a memo that says, "Nothing to see here, folks," well, a lot of Americans just don't buy it. So what do we do now? Where do we go from here? Mr. Bongino, according to reports yesterday, is back. For now, sources say that his future is still uncertain. And if more pressure builds, if more documents remain sealed, or if more promises go unfulfilled, it's very possible he could walk and make a public show of it. And Miss Bondi, according to her, she's staying the course. According to the president, she's staying the course. President Trump's backing her. But you got to admit, she's walking a very fine line here. If more cracks appear in the story, she's going to be under the microscope again. As for President Trump, he does what he does best, trying to keep the show running, the drama contained, and focus on the future, not the past. But the Epstein case, like it or not, I don't think it's going away. Do you? Not for Trump, not for Bondi, and certainly not for Dan Bongino. And maybe that's a good thing, because sometimes a little fire under the rug is the only way the truth finally sees daylight. But again, I get back to the what if. What if there really isn't anything else? I mean, we've all, I think, probably have hoped that there was a list. I mean, we've all certainly thought that. And is there any condition, any situation that's going to convince you otherwise? Is there anything that would make you believe that there really wasn't a list, and that this whole story that's been built up for several years now was just overstated, exaggerated? Are you buying that? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com to get the very best deal possible on any item that Mike Lindell sells. The sheets, the towels, the My Slippers, and, of course, the My Pillows. Promo code Joey at MyPillow.com. Joey Hudson here. America is facing a health crisis, and the answer isn't more meds. I lost over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan without Ozempic or any weight loss shots. Don't settle for a lifetime of medication. GLP-1 injections like Ozempic help some people lose weight, but they come with side effects, high cost, and most gain it back when they stop. At PhD Weight Loss, we reveal Big Pharma's big secret. Your body already makes GLP-1, the appetite-fighting hormone. Our program helps your body make it naturally so you'll drop the pounds faster. With the PhD method, no side effects, no long-term risk, no rebound weight gain, just natural, lasting results, all without hunger or cravings. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. Discover your body's true potential without a shot. It's free and gives you the keys to your personalized plan. Do like I did and don't trade your health for a quick fix. Call now at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. Former President Joe Biden back in headlines yesterday. The New York Post Editorial Board had a lot to say about this growing saga of Joe Biden's use of the Autopen in the final days of his presidency. They wrote in an editorial, former President Joe Biden's lame attempt to defend his last-minute pardons only confirms what everyone suspected. His staff ran wild with his Autopen. What else did they control? And that's a valid question. In an interview with the New York Times, Biden claimed he made every decision himself when it came to the 25 Autopen signed pardon and commutation warrants that his White House issued in the final months of his presidency. But then he admitted that he didn't explicitly agree to each and every clemency winner. His excuse? We're talking about a whole lot of people, he said, which actually is a big part of the problem. Why so many? The number is staggering. The warrants commuted the sentences of about 4,000 inmates in total, including 5 child killers and several mass murderers on death row. And with the stroke of the Autopen, they were free. The New York Post goes on to write, plus he handed out a few dozen full pardons, most notoriously to his own legally compromised family members. Biden himself admits he wasn't fully hands-on when it came to who was getting sprung or protected from future prosecution. The editorial board writes, exactly how involved was he? Not very. The Biden White House had a process for approving the pardons that seemed to only minimally include the president. Is this troubling for you to hear? We suspected it, but now it appears to be confirmed. The Post writes Biden would supposedly give oral approval for the terms of the warrants. Then assistants who weren't even in those meetings would write up, quote, blurbs with descriptions of the president's approval, which would get sent to Biden's staff secretary, who then used the Autopen to sign off. That's a heck of a lot of power in the hands of Biden's staff people. The Post writes it gives credence to President Donald Trump's claim that Biden's aides abused the power of presidential signatures through the use of an Autopen to conceal his cognitive decline. That charge is being investigated by the Justice Department and Congress, but getting anyone in Biden's inner circle to testify has been an exercise in pulling teeth. The Post writes, last week, Joe's former doctor, Kevin O'Connor, pleaded the fifth instead of answering a single question about the former president's health. Biden didn't seem bothered by his staff's liberal use of Autopen, but he has a stake in pushing the narrative that he was A-OK with the setup. What's left of his battered legacy and his pride would be further tarnished by an admission that he wasn't fully in charge. Joe clearly meant to take the heat off by telling the Times he was the one making the decisions. But his own words put the lie to that. All they do is confirm that the GOPers trying to get answers about who was running the country under Biden are on the right track. Now, that was the New York Post. Meanwhile, as a result of the New York Times' story, Senator Rand Paul is like lighting a match to a fire because he's on fire again. This time, he's going after Anthony Fauci again. Rand Paul says he's reissuing his criminal referral for Dr. Anthony Fauci. And the timing, it's no coincidence that this is coming about after we learn about the Autopen. This isn't the first time, of course, that Rand Paul's gone after Anthony Fauci. In 2021, Paul said Fauci lied. In 2023, he said it again. And now in 2025, he's not letting go. Paul wrote on X yesterday, perjury is a crime and Fauci must be held accountable. And normally this would just be another entry in the Rand Paul versus Anthony Fauci political saga. Except this time there's the twist of Fauci's name being caught up in something bigger, and that's the Autopen scandal. As we mentioned, the Autopen is a machine. It's a robotic signature tool that lets the president sign things without literally picking up a pen. It's legal technically. It's been used before. Donald Trump uses it. But when the New York Times dropped their report showing that during the final days of Joe Biden's presidency, a flood of pardons and executive documents were signed, not by hand, but by Autopen. And not just that, the report says that Biden's chief of staff, Jeff Zients, was the one signing off on what got approved and what didn't. Not the president, but the staff. Now, just let that sink in for a second. And again, the numbers are staggering. We're talking about over 4,000 clemency documents, many of them involving controversial figures, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, two of Donald Trump's loudest critics, of course. Pardoned automatically, mechanically, while Biden, we don't know where Biden was or if he even knew it for sure. He claims he did, but that's suspect in itself. Why would Joe Biden contradict his former chief of staff? That would only make his presidency look that weaker. Which brings us back to Senator Rand Paul, because it turns out that Fauci's name, he was one of the lucky recipients of one of those preemptive pardons, rubber stamped with a machine, allegedly not even seen by Biden himself, just greenlit by the staff. And that's where this gets political. President Trump came out swinging yesterday, standing in front of reporters. He didn't hold back. He said, I guarantee you Biden knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee you. We all believe that. He went even further, calling this, and I quote, possibly one of the biggest scandals we've had in 50 to 100 years. So if you don't believe that this matters, consider this. President Trump has made Joe Biden's mental capacity and the question of presidential accountability central to his 2024 and now moving forward as we head into the 2026 midterm elections. It is one of the central points of that. Rand Paul, his criminal referral to Fauci, folds directly into that story, because if Fauci was involved in a cover-up, and if Fauci lied to Congress, and if Fauci was pardoned preemptively, and if that pardon didn't come from Biden, but from a staff member with an Autopen, then we're not just dealing with perjury, possibly. We're dealing with a government that may have functioned for a time without a fully functioning president. And that's where this story starts to cut deeper than politics. It could get big, folks. It could get much, much bigger. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Pete writes, "Hey, Joey, the handling of Epstein's case is very sad. The real scandal was, 1, who was the psychologist that took him off suicide watch? Number 2, who provided Epstein with extra sheets to hang himself? And 3, why was Ms. Maxwell charged with sex trafficking? Her dad was involved, so Israel probably asked not to be released. Who knows?" Jennifer on the text line says, "I had a regular, 'Hey, Joey, it's Jennifer' text messages going to you, which I'll finish and send later." I'll be waiting, Jennifer. "But I had to tell you this. I'm no conspiracy theorist, and you might know a lot about this already, but it's the basic inside job kind of story involving HSI and DHS regarding the shooting in Butler. I heard Mike Benz talk about it on Will Cain's show. You might want to check it out and see what you think." Well, thank you, Jennifer. I will check that out. Look, there's probably some questions that are going to need to be addressed in the way Butler was handled. We'll see. I don't think we're finished with that yet. So here's a story that's going to shake things up in Washington a bit. Probably every public school district across America took note of it yesterday as well. The Supreme Court delivered a big win for the Trump administration, green-lighting its push to lay off hundreds of employees at the U.S. Department of Education. Yep, the highest court in the land says it's okay, at least for now, for the administration to continue its dramatic downsizing of the Department of Education, if not to just totally eliminate it at all. The decision, McMahon versus State of New York, was split right down the usual ideological line, 6-3. We're hearing that a lot, aren't we? 6-3. Conservatives in majority, liberals in the dissent. Now, here's why this matters. The case revolves around a decision earlier this year by Education Secretary Linda McMahon, the same Linda McMahon from the WWE fame and now a key player in Trump's cabinet. Back in March, she laid off half the department's workforce. Half. We're talking about nearly 1,400 people. No buyouts, no departmental transfers. It was just part of what the White House is calling a reduction in force. It was part of the DOJ announcements when we saw a number of federal employees being let go because they weren't necessary. Now, make no mistake, again, this was more than a layoff. This was part of the much bigger move. Trump's made it very clear, it's no secret, that he wants to shut down the Department of Education entirely. Close it down. It's outlived its purpose, if it ever had one. Now, in fact, just weeks after those layoffs, President Trump signed an executive order to begin the process of doing just that, of shuttering the department altogether forever. You can almost hear the gasp coming from Capitol Hill when this happened, because we've talked about eliminating the Department of Education for years. We're closer than ever of actually doing it, because I'm not sure that anyone ever thought that we really would close the Department of Education. Now it's likely to become reality. Of course, this triggered massive legal challenges. 20 Democrat-led states immediately filed suit, saying that these layoffs made it impossible for the department to meet its legal obligations, like reviewing whether colleges qualify for federal student aid or monitoring special education programs. Basically, they're arguing that the department isn't just understaffed, that it's being gutted on purpose. One federal judge agreed. That was Judge Mayong Jun, who said, quote, "The record abundantly reveals that Trump's real plan is to effectively dismantle the department without an authorizing statute." Yes, I think, Judge, I think you're right. Donald Trump has made no secret that he wants to dismantle the Department of Education. Now, that's the key issue here. Whether Trump can legally do this without going through Congress. That's the million-dollar question. Because let's be clear, shutting down a cabinet-level agency like the Department of Education, maybe it does. I don't know. That's not something you do with just a stroke of a pen, typically. It's supposed to take congressional approval. Makes sense to me. But the Trump administration insists that it isn't breaking the law. They say that they're trimming the fat, reorganizing, laying off a lot of people, but they're still performing all the essential functions. The department isn't gone, it's just leaner. That's their argument. Now, back to the Supreme Court. This latest ruling doesn't decide the whole case. It's a procedural move, a temporary order. What it does is put Judge Jun's earlier decision on hold. His ruling had reinstated the 1,400 laid-off employees, but the Supreme Court said not so fast. The administration can move forward with its plan while the legal process plays out. The case is now headed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and maybe back to the Supreme Court for a final say later on. We'll see. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wasn't having it. She wrote a fiery dissent, calling the decision indefensible. That was a quote from her. Indefensible, her word. She wrote, "When the executive publicly announces its intent to break the law and then executes on that promise, it is the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not expedite it." That's about as strong as it gets from the bench. She basically is calling Trump out, claiming that he's breaking the law. Secretary McMahon, she's thrilled. She called the ruling a win for the administration's plan to restore excellence in American education. Her argument is that by reducing the size of the federal bureaucracy, states and families are going to get more control and more flexibility over how education is actually delivered to their family members, to the students. There's going to be less red tape, more local power to local school districts. It's a classic conservative message, and one that's gaining steam across GOP-led states. And it's just common sense. It's just common sense that our school boards, our school districts at a local level are better prepared to deliver quality education than some bureaucrat sitting in Washington. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, does it? And Ms. McMahon says that the feds will meet their legal obligations. She's quoted as saying, "We're not abandoning students or families. We're just doing things smarter and more efficiently." Now, some would argue with that point, claiming that's not the case, that's not even possible, that without the 1,400 employees that the Trump administration has let go, it's impossible for the Department of Education to carry out its legal obligations. Now, Trump, for his part, he's been saying this all along. During the 2024 campaign, he made the Department of Education a major target. I mean, how many times did we hear him say in stump speeches that he's going to dismantle the Department of Education and give local education back to parents, back to local school districts. He argued that education should be returned to the states, that the federal government has become too bloated, too political, too distant from what schools really need. And clearly, he wasted no time in delivering that promise within the first few months. But the pushback from the liberals, from the left, has been fierce. Democrat attorneys general are warning that cutting the department like this with no replacement plan, no congressional authorization, puts millions of students at risk, they say. Federal student loans, civil rights enforcement, support for disabled students. They're rolling out all the stops. And all that runs through the Department of Education. And if you got the agency, they argue, you got those protections. Just not possible to protect those students, according to their argument. I'm not buying it, though, are you? I mean, even some centrist policy experts are, in fact, raising red flags, too. They say, look, reform is one thing, but eliminating the department outright, that's uncharted territory. Let's not forget the politics, though. This is shaping up to be one of the signature fights of Trump's second term. Shutting down a cabinet-level department is bold, it's symbolic, it sends a message to voters that he's serious about downsizing government, returning power to the states, and shaking up the so-called deep state. That message plays very well with his base, and that's what he promised us, isn't it? That's what he promised in the 2024 election. Is it risky? Democrats are already using this to rally teachers' unions, trying to get suburban voters out. College students are painting the administration as reckless, sacrificing education in the name of ideology, they say. And there's the thing, the Department of Education was created in 1979. It's been part of our government for over 40 years. No president, not Reagan, not Bush, not even Trump in his first term has managed to shut it down. So if this effort succeeds, it's going to be historic. But it's not unusual for Donald Trump to do things that other presidents have said they're going to do, but never were able to do. That's Donald Trump at his best. All right, get this. A giant digital billboard just went up in Times Square telling New Yorkers to get out, move to Ohio. Why? Because, of course, Zohran Mamdani, Democrat socialist, who's now the front runner in New York City's mayoral race. The ad reads, worried about Zohran? Ohio is waiting for you. It's paid for by VPAC, the super PAC backing Republican Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor in Ohio. Yep, we've hit the point where people are trying to poach entire populations over politics. The billboard shows Mamdani labeled a radical socialist and Vivek as the guy protecting freedom. It's dramatic. It's expensive, $50,000 a week. And evidently it's working because people are talking. See, Mamdani's known for things like pushing city-owned grocery stores and saying out loud, and I quote, that he supports seizing the means of production. That's not an SNL sketch. That's a real quote from a real politician who will probably be the next mayor of New York. So Vivek's camp is trolling, but they're also making a pitch. Don't like New York's direction? Hey, we've got jobs. We have lower taxes, fewer government-run produce aisles in Ohio, and a lot less hassle. Now, is it a stunt? Totally. But is it smart politics? Well, maybe, because this isn't just about Mamdani or Vivek. It's about two Americas, one moving towards socialism, one moving towards government can do everything. Government's the answer to every problem. Let government run your local grocery store. The other toward small government. And now they're fighting it out in one of the biggest media markets in America, the Jumbotrons in Times Square. Only in 2025, folks, only in politics would you see something like this. I first saw news of this next story on Facebook when Reverend Franklin Graham posted about it. And I wasn't sure if it was true at first. I mean, the story. I mean, and he questioned it. He said, if this is true, as if he hadn't totally confirmed it or wasn't believing it. But the story is now confirmed, and that's the story of former HGTV stars, Chip and Joanna Gaines. They're facing backlash for their new reality show, which features a same-sex couple. You heard me right. The name of the show is Back to the Frontier, and it's about three American families who attempt to survive as 1880s homesteaders. It debuted on HBO Max on July the 10th. The Gaines are executive producers of the Magnolia Network series, the cable network they co-founded with Warner Brothers. It was promoted as featuring family-friendly, unscripted programming. Now, after clips of the show were shared on social media, the Gaineses were criticized by conservative Christian pastors like Franklin Graham, organizations, media commentators, over the show casting two Texas dads and their 10-year-old twin sons, who were born via a surrogate. Critics claimed that the Gaines were promoting an anti-biblical lifestyle while they built a media empire professing their Christian faith. Reverend Franklin Graham, president of Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, called the casting decision very disappointing. He wrote on social media, "While we are to love people, we should love them enough to tell them the truth of God's word. His word is absolute truth. God loves us, and his design for marriage is between one man and one woman. Promoting something that God defines as sin is in itself sin," according to Reverend Graham. Ed Vitalio, vice president of the American Family Association, said the move was sad and disappointing from the couple who've been very influential in the evangelical community. Moreover, in the past, they've stood firm on the sanctity of marriage regardless of the personal cost that it has entailed. This was posted on X. He went on to say, "We aren't sure why the Gaines have reversed course, but we are sure of this. Back to the Frontier promotes an unbiblical view of human sexuality, marriage, and family, a view no Christian should embrace," he added. Chip Gaines' July 10th social media post promoting the show was also flooded with thousands of negative comments. He responded to the backlash over the weekend, saying, "Talk, ask questions, listen, maybe even learn," he told critics. Too much to ask of modern American Christian culture? Judge first, understand later, never. I'm not quite sure what point he's trying to make here. He said it's sad when non-believers have never been confronted with hate or vitriol until they are introduced to a modern American Christian. He added a heartbreak emoji beside it. Gaines also responded to Joel Berry, managing editor of Christian Satirical News, the website Babylon Bee. We're all familiar with that. Who asked Gaines to filter out some of the online vitriol and consider taking to heart some of the substantive concerns and heartbreak from Christians who make up your fan base. The Babylon Bee has had several posts about this, about the whole story. Said, "Don't be sad," Gaines replied. "Don't be sad, Joel. Plenty of other stuff out there. I'm sure everyone will be fine, but I sincerely appreciate the advice about taking some of the thoughtful, heartfelt, encouraging, constructive criticism to heart, and I certainly will." I mean, it appears that Chip Gaines is not backing down. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a program that you will even consider watching? Have the Gaineses lost their way? You agree with Reverend Graham when he said that that this type of promotion of a lifestyle that is sinful is sin in itself? Look, I don't know that I'd want to be on the opposite side of an issue like this with Franklin Graham. And it is a little surprising for Chip and Joanna Gaines to take this stance after years of promoting their Christianity. Now, look, it's not up to us to judge. They'll eventually face the ultimate judgment. But it's just a bit odd to me that they would even consider going down this path. As successful as they are, it's kind of like they've folded to the Hollywood elite, isn't it? That maybe they think, well, we have reached a certain amount of success, and if we're going to really go to the next level, we have to broaden our audience. Have they ever thought about that they're going to potentially lose a large portion of their base of audience? I mean, I can see a lot of people. Now, let me say this. I don't watch them. I can't remember the last time I even watched one of their shows. I just know who they are because, for years they've been everywhere. Magazines. You see them on other TV shows. And I've watched parts of their shows. I'm just not someone who watches this type of TV. But I'll tell you this, I certainly will not watch this new Back to the Frontier. I will certainly avoid that one for sure. What about you? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Are people like Franklin Graham overreacting to this? Am I overreacting to it? Should we just have the attitude that, hey, it's their life, let them live it, it's their business, let them do what they want with their business. If they want to promote this, let them promote it. We'll see. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James. We're back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. for more of Sunrise Carolina. Until then, just remember this. God is, in fact, still in control. He's got this. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.